Do you want to learn how you can deploy a React app and ensure that it loads for your customers as quickly as possible? In this video, that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do. Hi guys, my name is Sam with Complete Coding, and in this video I'm going to be showing you how we can deploy a single page React app using serverless. Instead of just deploying it to an S3 bucket, we're also going to be adding in CloudFront distributions. CloudFront is a CDN which allows us to cache our web pages closer to the end users. This means that you are more likely to get a fast, low latency response for your website, which results in a better user experience. This is a great option, and it also integrates with a lot of the other AWS services. So now we're going to jump into the code and see how we can set this all up. Now that we're in the code, the first thing that we want to do is to create a React app that we're going to deploy. To do this, I'm actually going to be using create React app, and I'm going to be using inside this folder to create a subfolder. So to create a React app, I'm going to run npx and then create -react-app, and finally the name of the app. I'm just going to call this demo-app. This is going to install and create all of the packages that we need inside demo app. This takes a little bit of time, so I'll get back to you when that is done. Now that that has finished building, we can go into our demo app by cding into demo app. And because this is a React app, we can run npm start, which will open up a new browser tab. And that is going to be at localhost :3000. And as you can see, we have the default React app here. Because this is React, you can do whatever you want. You can build your complete website. This could be a portfolio, this could be a customer project, this could be whatever you like. It has to be a single page application, but this is all contained within here. I'm going to modify this a little bit so that we know when we deploy it that it's definitely our app. So first we're going to head back to our code, and we're going to close this, and we're going to jump into our demo app. Jump into the source and app.js. This is where all of the default page is found. The first thing we're going to do is change the text here to be "This is a React app for complete coding." As well as that, I'm going to change this link a bit. I'm going to change it from Learn React to Learn Serverless. And of course, I need to change the URL. I've got the URL here for all of my videos, so I'm going to save that. The last thing we can do is actually change the logo. This is going to be a little bit of fun, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to paste into the source the complete coding logo. Now inside app.js, the logo we're currently getting from logo.svg, but we can now change that. We can now get it from /complete coding logo.png. If we save that and restart our React app, we shall see that this will change in a second, and we'll see our new React app that we have created. If I just refresh the page, there we go. This is my logo spinning around now. This is a React app for complete coding and the link to learn serverless. Now we can jump back into the code where we can set up the S3 bucket, the syncing, as well as the CloudFront management, which allow us to deploy a scalable and fast website. Inside this code, we can now minimize the demo app and close these two files. So it leaves us back in this serverless YAML file. In this file, we need to do quite a lot of setup to get this all working. So the first thing that we need to do is get rid of functions, because in this project, we aren't actually deploying any Lambda functions, but we do need to use a plugin. So we need to say plugins, and this is an array. And we have one item in here, which is the serverless-s3-sync. And if we copy this, we can also go into a terminal. We can create a new terminal here and run npm install --save-dev and paste in the serverless s3 sync to make sure that we actually install this serverless plugin. This plugin will allow us to upload a set of files, in our case the built React app, and deploy it up to an S3 bucket. So with this plugin, we need a little bit of configuration in the custom section. So create a custom section, and inside this we have S3 sync, and this is setting up a set of buckets to be deployed to. So what we're going to do is we're going to deploy a bucket name, and we're actually going to be using a local reference for this. So we're going to use $ curly braces self : custom.bucket name. And what we're going to do is we need to add this to our custom variables. So our bucket name is going to be my serverless React app, and then because it needs to be unique across the globe for everybody, because this is a bucket, I'm going to add some numbers onto the end. So I'm going to add 4556. Now we can go back to our S3 sync, and we are going to be telling S3 to sync up to this bucket. And we also need to tell it what we're going to be syncing up. We do this by passing in a local dir, which is a local directory. And for us, that is going to be the build folder of the React app. So to get there, it's going to be demo-app/build/. And that is going to make sure that the build folder from our demo app gets deployed. At this stage, we probably want to make sure that we have actually built our app. So we're going to cd into demo-app and run npm run build. This is going to build that React app that we had just seen with the spinning complete coding logo and deploy it into build. Now that we've done that, we need to set up some of the S3 buckets as well as some other policies around CloudFront. So to do this, we need to define some resources. And because of the format of serverless, this has to also have a property of capital resources. So the resources that we're going to be defining are the S3 bucket. So I'm going to call that React App Bucket. This resource has a type of AWS S3 bucket, and then it has some properties. These properties include a bucket name, which we're going to use a reference to self custom dot bucket name. As well as that, we have to set an access control policy. So access control, and we're going to set it to public read. This means that anyone that reads any files from this bucket will automatically be able to read it from the public, but won't be able to write. To write to this, you need extra permissions. And as well as that, we need some website configuration. And this is defining some of the URLs. So index document is going to be index.html, and we're also going to have an error document, which again is also going to be index.html. So that is our S3 bucket configured. It's going to be deploying with our bucket name, and it's going to be publicly accessible. We also want to create an access policy. So we're going to do that with a S3 access policy, and this resource is going to have a type of AWS S3 bucket policy. It's going to have some properties, and these properties are the bucket. And here we actually need to reference. So ref means point at one of the other resources in this deployment. So what we're going to do is copy the React App bucket and paste it just there. Also, we need a policy document. This has some statements. And the first thing that we need to pass into this statement array is an SID. For this, we're saying that we're allowing customers to get objects, as in to read them from the public. So we have a property of public read get object. We also have an effect. So this is going to be similar to I am role statement things. So we're going to allow. Now we need to define the principal. And this principal is defining what can access, and we want this to be accessible by everyone. So we can set .star. We then have an action array, and this action array has a property of s3 colon get object, as this is what we want everyone to be able to do, to be able to read the objects, but we don't want them to be able to write new objects to our bucket. And finally, we need to define the resource that we are affecting this on. And this resource is the S3 ARN, which will be ARN colon AWS colon S3, and then 3 colons, and then the bucket name. We can reference the bucket name here with self dot colon custom dot bucket name, and then we want to be able to access all of the resources in this bucket, so /star. Now if we go back to so that we're in line with the access policy, we're going to be creating a configuration for our CloudFront distribution. So CloudFront distribution. This is going to have a type, as always, of AWS colon colon. Now this is going to be CloudFront colon 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 and distribution. This has some properties, and the properties on this are a distribution configuration. Inside this distribution configuration, we first have to set the origins. The origins are an array which define the URL that we want the end CloudFront distribution to point at. So for us, we're going to start with domain name, and this is going to be bucketname.s3.amazonaws.com. So we have to use a reference here for custom colon self dot bucket name, and then it's going to be .s3.amazon.aws.com. As well as a domain name, we need an ID. I'm going to call this React App, and some origin configuration. So custom origin config. This custom origin config needs a HTTP port, and that needs to be set to 80. We also need to define a HTTPS port of 443, and then the origin protocol policy. This is just stating how we want these resources to be accessed. Because nowadays everything needs to be secured, we're going to say that it can only be accessed by HTTPS by setting HTTPS -only. So that now is the origins configured. We need to add a field of enabled, which is going to be true. The default root object is going to be the index.html, because this is telling it where the CloudFront distribution should be pointed at. We also have some error responses. So if there is an error, we need to define custom error responses. If there's an error code of 404, what do? We're going to respond with a code of 200. So response code of 200. And we're actually just going to return the index.html file. So the response page path of /index.html. So if they go to a URL page on this CloudFormation and CloudFront template that doesn't exist, they'll get a 404, but that's going to redirect them to get to 200 and send them back to the index.html page. The last thing we need to do is set up some default caching behavior. So this is telling the browser what to do with the files to cache them locally. Caching files will speed up how users experience your site the second, third, fourth time round. So it's a really good thing to set up. We need to say which of our methods they're allowed to cache. So allowed methods, which is a list. And this is going to be a list of all of the methods as we want all of them to be cached. So it's delete, get, head, options, patch, post, and put. So that's going to set all of the options to be cached. We need to set the target origin ID. And this is going to be the ID that we set up higher up, which is here, the origin React app. So copy that and paste that in there. Then we need some forwarding values for query strings. So if someone uses query strings, what's going to happen? So the forwarded values, query string, and we're going to set this to false. And cookies, we're going to select the forward of none. The last thing we need to do is set a viewer protocol policy. And this is saying what we should do if the user comes on a method that we are not expecting. As we've set here, it should be HTTPS only. So if they come on HTTP, we want to redirect /to-HTTPS. This means that no matter what, if they come on a HTTP URL, they're automatically going to load the HTTPS version. So that is the last of the default cache behavior to set up. So if we go back to that level as well, we also need a certificate. So the viewer certificate is whether to use SSL and where to get that from. And we're going to be using a CloudFront SSL certificate. So we're going to set CloudFront default certificate and set that to true. And that is going to make sure that when we are trying to use HTTPS, we need a security certificate, and we're going to be using the default one provided by CloudFront. If we now save this, we can actually go into our terminal, go back down from the demo app into the root My Serverless project folder, and now run SLS deploy. Now that that has finished deploying, we can head over to our AWS account, where we will have an S3 bucket and a CloudFront distribution created. We're going to look at the URL from the CloudFront distribution, so you can search for front and found CloudFront. Now that we're in here, we can see there is a record, and if we click on this ID here, it will open up a load of details for us. If we click inside the origins and origin group, we can see there is a domain name and path. We can copy this and paste it into a new browser tab with /index.html on the end, and we get our React app that is now deployed through serverless and a CloudFront distribution. This means you get all of the benefits of deploying through a CloudFront distribution, such as the edge distribution, which means things are going to render and load much quicker than they would just from a single S3 bucket. So in this video, we have learned how we can set up a React app to be deployed through serverless into an Amazon S3 bucket. We've then also configured a CloudFront distribution, which will be connected to that app. This CloudFront distribution allows us to cache that website closer to users to improve the performance of your site. Everyone knows that performance is king in making sure your users have a great experience, so this is a brilliant way to provide that to your customers. If you've learned something new in this video, it would really help me out and help out the channel if you hit that like button, as it helps more developers like you get a chance to learn this kind of stuff. If you're looking for more videos on serverless, then please subscribe or check out this playlist, which outlines all of the other serverless videos that I've done so far. Thank you, and I'll see you again next time.